Alright, let's talk about Ghost of Yotei, one of those games that grabs you by the collar and refuses to let go. At the heart of its story lies Atsu's burning hatred for a group known as the Yotei Six, a team of powerful figures led by the ruthless Lord Saito. They're not just random villains, though. These people are directly responsible for throwing Edzo into chaos and, more importantly, for destroying Atsu's family. That's what makes this story hit so hard. Every target on your list isn't just another mission, it's deeply personal. In this video, we're diving into the dark and fascinating world of the Yotei Six. We're ranking each member based on how well they're written, how their boss fights play out, and just how much we love to hate them. Some of them will test your patience, others will break your heart, and a few will make you question who the real villain actually is. So, let's take a closer look at these 6 monsters in human form, and see which one truly stands out as the best of the worst. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. Alright, let's be honest for a second. Out of all the members of the Yotei Six, the Snake is probably the one we all forget exists. And that is not really his fault. It is more of a "the game did him dirty" situation. The poor guy shows up, gives us a great introduction to how deadly these enemies can be, and then gets sent straight to the afterlife before the prologue even ends. It is almost tragic how fast his screen time disappears. But you have to admit, for someone who lasts barely 15 minutes, the Snake makes one hell of an impression. He is slimy, unpredictable, and always feels one step ahead of you, even when he is completely drunk. That's kind of the best part. The man is absolutely wasted and still almost kills Atsu in the first fight. It sets the tone perfectly. It tells you that these are not your average villains. These are people who will make your life miserable from the very beginning. And honestly, the writing helps him a lot. You can feel the menace in every line he delivers. It is clear that if he had just a bit more time, maybe one more encounter before dying, the Snake could have been one of those fan-favorite characters. The kind you hate, but also secretly respect. Instead, he ends up as the definition of gone too soon. It is like the developers gave us a taste of how interesting he could be, and then just took it away. Still, as far as tutorial bosses go, the Snake does his job perfectly. He teaches you the basics, scares you a little, and makes you think twice before rushing into the next fight. And maybe that is his real legacy, not as a great villain, but as the guy who showed us that surviving in Ghost of Yotei is going to be anything but easy. The dragon is one of those characters that sounds cooler on paper than he actually is in the game. You hear his name, the dragon, and you immediately expect someone terrifying, someone who dominates every scene he is in, but instead he kind of just shows up, does a few things in cutscenes, and then exits stage left. His role is more of a narrative stepping stone than a real personality. Which is a shame, because with a name like that, expectations are sky high. The problem is that the dragon's story matters more than the dragon himself. His death becomes this big turning point for the people around him. His brother, the spider, and his father, Lord Saito. Both of them gain emotional depth and motivation from losing him, but that means he exists mainly to make their arcs stronger. It is one of those situations where the writers clearly used a character as a tool for the plot, and you can feel it while playing. That said, the game at least tries to make his exit memorable with that boss fight. And to be fair, it works. The fight is chaotic, flashy, and difficult, especially if you are brave or foolish enough to play on lethal mode. Of course, the spider joining in kind of steals the spotlight, but still, it is one of those moments where the gameplay makes you care, even if the story does not. For that one battle, the dragon feels like the warrior his title promises, but once it is over, that's pretty much it. No deeper insight, no emotional flashbacks, no hidden lore to make you miss him later. He is just gone. The Snake might have been a tutorial boss, but at least he had some charm and personality. The dragon, he is the definition of a plot device with cool armor. And in a cast as colorful and deadly as the Yotei Six, that is not exactly the legacy you want to leave behind. Alright, so here is the twist. The Yotei Six are actually the Yotei 7. Kind of. That is because the Kitsune mantle has been worn by 2 different people, and today we are talking about the second one, Dojun. Right from the start, you can tell he is not the same kind of villain as the others. There is no deep personal vendetta between him and Atsu, no tragic backstory connecting them. He is more of a passing storm, dangerous, impressive, but ultimately serving a bigger narrative purpose. And that purpose is mostly to make someone else look good, specifically the first Kitsune, Oyuki. Dojun exists to build up her legacy, to remind us how powerful, respected, and feared the original Kitsune was. It is not exactly a flattering position to be in, but it works for the story. You can tell the writers wanted to create a bridge between the old and new generations of assassins. And Dojun is that bridge, even if he never gets to fully stand on his own. That being said, his part of the game is actually a lot of fun. Unlike the snake or the dragon, Dojun gets a full section of the map dedicated to him and his shinobi followers. Sneaking through enemy camps, cutting through waves of masked assassins, and finally confronting him in his lair. It all feels like a proper ninja showdown. The boss fight might not be the hardest, but the build-up and atmosphere make it memorable. It is one of those moments where the gameplay carries the character. And hey, at least he leaves something behind. That mask. It is stylish, eerie, and easily one of the best-looking trophies you can get in the game. So, while Dojun may not be the emotional centerpiece of the story, he still gives us a great fight, a cool collectible, and a solid reason to keep pushing forward. Sometimes that is all you need to earn a respectable spot in the Yotei lineup. The Spider is one of those characters who immediately stand out, not because he is the strongest or the most intimidating, but because he feels real. As Lord Saito's overlooked son and the dragon's younger brother, he carries all the baggage that comes with growing up in a broken, power-hungry family. He is the kind of guy who acts like he does not care about anything, but deep down, all he wants is a bit of recognition from his father. You can feel that every time he opens his mouth. The mix of bitterness, humor, and exhaustion just oozes through. What makes the Spider such a strong character, though, is the writing around his relationships. His bond with his brother, the dragon, gives him genuine depth. You see that, beneath all his sarcasm and laid-back attitude, there is a real sense of loss driving him. And the way the story uses him to explore the endless cycle of revenge is brilliant. It is through him that Atsu, and, in a way, the player, starts realizing that vengeance might not be the answer. He is both a mirror and a warning, which makes him so much more than just another boss to defeat. From a gameplay perspective, the Spider's fights are not the toughest in the game, but they fit his character perfectly. He is flashy, unpredictable, and clever, but not exactly disciplined or powerful. The fact that he is not a great fighter actually makes the encounter feel more authentic. You're not just battling someone who can outmuscle you. You are fighting a guy who relies on tricks, quick moves, and that constant smirk that makes you want to punch him even harder. By the end, the Spider ends up being one of the most memorable members of the Yotei Six. He is charismatic, flawed, and layered in a way most of the others are not. He may not be the most dangerous, but he is easily one of the most human. And in a story filled with killers, vengeance, and tragedy, that might be his greatest strength. The Oni is the kind of villain that makes your blood boil in the best way possible. From the moment you learn what he did, you just know that every time he shows up on screen, it is going to sting. And that is exactly what the game wants. While Lord Saito might be the mastermind behind everything, the Oni is the one who actually delivered the killing blow to Atsu's father. He is the face of that tragedy, the physical embodiment of everything Atsu is fighting against. What makes him so infuriating, though, is how casually cruel he is. The game gives you moments where you have to interact with him while disguised as a bounty hunter, and during those scenes, he is surprisingly polite. He cracks jokes, acts friendly, even offers you a drink. But then you see how he treats everyone else. The arrogance, the violence, the lack of remorse, and it just burns. It is that perfect mix of fake charm and real evil that makes him one of the easiest characters to despise. And the best part? He is not just talk. When it finally comes time to face him, the Oni delivers one of the most intense fights in the first half of the game. He hits like a truck, his moves are unpredictable, and the arena itself feels like a nightmare. It is not the hardest fight overall. The Dragon or Saito probably hold that title. But because you are still early in your journey and not as powerful, it feels massive. It is one of those battles that truly test your patience, timing, and anger management skills. By the time you finally put him down, it feels less like a victory and more like justice. The story does not need to overcomplicate him. The Oni is not here to be sympathetic or misunderstood. He is here to make you hate him, to fuel Atsu's revenge, and to remind you exactly what kind of world Ghost of Yotei takes place in. And on that front, he absolutely delivers. Oyuki, the first Kitsune, stands out from the rest of the Yotei Six for one major reason. She is not your typical villain. In fact, she is one of the few members who actually shows regret for what happened to Atsu's family. While she was present during that tragic night, she disagreed with the decision and even helped Atsu escape when everything went wrong. That single act of mercy adds so much depth to her character, instantly making her feel more human than most of her ruthless peers. Her story becomes even more emotional when you realize that her role is not about revenge, but forgiveness. The entire Kitsune arc, with both Oyuki and Dojun, revolves around Atsu learning to let go of her hatred, and Oyuki plays a huge part in that. She represents the idea that even among monsters, there can still be compassion and guilt. It is rare for a game like Ghost of Yotei to slow down and focus on something so personal, but Oyuki's presence forces both Atsu and the player to reflect on what vengeance actually costs. The confrontation with Oyuki is less of a boss fight and more of an emotional test. It is not a particularly hard battle, but narratively it hits hard. You are not fighting someone you want to destroy. You are fighting someone you once trusted, someone who carries the same pain you do. The writing during that scene does a brilliant job of making you hesitate, making you question whether killing her will actually bring peace. And that hesitation is exactly what makes Oyuki unforgettable. She is a rare example of a villain-turned-ally who feels earned, not forced. Her arc closes a painful chapter for Atsu and shows that revenge does not always have to end in blood. By the end of her story, Oyuki is not just a member of the Yotei Six. She is a symbol of redemption in a world built on betrayal. Lord Saito is everything a final boss should be. Intimidating, complex, and deeply tied to the heart of the story. From the very beginning, his shadow looms over everything that happens in Ghost of Yotei. Every tragedy, every act of violence, every painful moment in Atsu's journey can be traced back to him. By the time you finally stand face to face with him, it is not just another fight. It is the emotional climax of the entire game. And just like in Ghost of Tsushima, that final duel hits hard, both mechanically and narratively. What makes Saito such a great villain is how much he reflects Atsu herself. He is not just an evil warlord chasing power. He is a man consumed by revenge, a man who lost himself trying to control the pain of his past. The story does not excuse his actions, but it makes you understand them, and that is what makes him dangerous. He is what Atsu could become if she let vengeance completely define her. It is that subtle psychological connection that gives their confrontation real weight. It is not just hero versus villain. It is Atsu versus what she could have been. And if that emotional intensity were not enough, Saito also makes sure the gameplay keeps up. The final fight is brutal, forcing you to master every weapon type before you can earn the right to face him blade to blade. It is the perfect culmination of everything the game has taught you, testing your patience, precision, and resolve. The moment when the battle shifts to pure katana combat feels almost cinematic. Two warriors with everything to lose, fighting for entirely different reasons. When it is all over, Saito's death feels inevitable, but not hollow. Atsu may have given up on revenge, but the story makes it clear that this is not vengeance. It is justice, not just for her family, but for Jubei as well. The fight is exhausting, emotional, and unforgettable. And as far as final bosses go, Lord Saito earns every bit of his reputation, not just as the ultimate antagonist, but as the embodiment of the game's central theme. What happens when vengeance becomes your entire life? The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.